I hope you enjoyed our conversation about AI and F1.
Topic in mind. So I was like, I wish I'd been on the whole call.
Don't sell yourself short.
Are you an F1
No.
fan?
Oh yeah, you know, it's funny. My family became F1 fans because of the Netflix series,
Oh.
All right.
where you got to
Gotcha.
see the people and the
Yeah.
drama behind the scenes,
Mhm.
and that got us all hooked.
Okay.
It's
All hooked, okay.
pretty cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you know, you
And,
get the
and to
personalities.
be,
I can't believe they can get those guys to say, "I hate that guy" on camera, and then have that guy say, "What do you think about him saying that about you?" So yeah,
and to be fair, Stan, what Netflix did for for F1 is what we do for AI companies. We want people to get to know you better, but we're not going to say we hate you.
beautiful.
We won't do that.
Okay.
That's not the way we work here.
Okay. And I won't say anything bad that you can use against me. Well, I
Yeah, let's
probably
not
will,
do
but
that either.
we'll see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. Anyway, great.
Perfect. But welcome to the live, Stan. I will let you guys have the conversation and I'll see you after.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Stan, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You're in Massachusetts, yeah?
I am. I'm right in Boston, the seaport, kind of the newest area of Boston. It's kind of new, young, high energy. It's great. Our team wanted to be here. It's a fantastic place to have a company and be located in Boston. But Boston's just a great place for high tech.
Oh, it's always been a great. I mean, don't you remember? Are you from the Boston area originally?
I'm a military brat, so I grew up all over the country. My dad
Yeah.
retired. We moved up to Boston. But yeah,
Fair enough. The Route
Yeah.
128 used to be like the
Oh.
high-tech highway.
It was. And then, you know, people that work here don't remember
No, Lotus
Digital
123.
Equipment,
Yep.
which at one point was the largest single private employer in the state of Massachusetts. They were a mini computer manufacturer, if you know the name,
Yep.
and they're no longer in business. From being the biggest private employer to now no longer in business.
Exactly.
It's the innovator's dilemma. If you read that book, I mean, you got to stay with the technology. You got to move fast, or you just get run over. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would make Martin and I make this case all the time, but I would make the case that, and we'll get to what we have you on for today in a moment. But I mean, just because you're first doesn't mean you last. And we were talking yesterday about like OpenAI and even Anthropic, right? Even if they raise $122 billion and are worth $1 trillion, like those LLMs may not be the last thing we build in the artificial intelligence space. And if that's the case, because microcomputers, which is what Digital Equipment was selling, were the first, but they definitely weren't the last. And they missed the whole PC thing. They missed the whole operating system thing. They're gone. And the market moves way faster now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, if the innovator's dilemma is just the disk drive manufacturers they use to use those examples, the guys who dominated the current market when the new technology came up, they said, who's going to want to, you know, that kind of technology? And then it turned out everybody. So just time and time again, but they used it because it moves so quickly. I think your OpenAI, Anthropic's a great example. And while everybody's fighting the LLM battle, somebody out there is working on a small language model that's going to be, you know, a million times more effective and efficient and cheap. And the data centers, the day they don't need them,
they're gone.
I mean, guess what?
We could talk about this for a long time, but look at what David Silver, right? The guy who was working at Google, he's building a model that has nothing to do with LLMs at all. He wants to make it learn on its own in the same way that we learn. And that's, in my mind, I feel like that's the way that artificial intelligence is going to get built. But let's get back to you in Gradient.
Right.
So we wanted to have you on because we wanted to understand how explainable AI is moving insurance from basic automation to trusted, defensible underwriting and operational decision-making. We love the insurance business, by the way. We don't think it's boring. We don't think it's unsexy. We've done a ton of work in the insurance sector. We've done multiple shows about insurance, meaning full podcast series on insurance. So we love this conversation. But before we get to like the main thing, why don't you tell us a little bit about the important work that Gradient AI does?
So thanks for the opportunity. So we are involved in the insurance space. I've been in different companies before, and being vertically focused helps you drive deeper, better solutions, I think. And so we've been focused on insurance, and it's really both underwriting and claims management on the P&C side and the group health side, where companies take risk. They're trying to transfer risk from people that don't want to take the full brunt of the risk. That's what insurance provides, that risk transfer. And the best way to do that is a properly pricing the exposure that the risk taker is taking on from the risk transfer, and then also managing those claims once they occur, and using AI to do a better job on both the pricing of that risk transfer and also the management of the risk that doesn't appear on your balance sheet, to manage it and mitigate it and drive the cost and provide better value. Not all of us that buy insurance, we only use it when there's a claim.
Exactly.
And if the claim experience is better, We're going to say this worked out well. It's terrible, like in many cases it is. We hate the insurance companies, and that I've had a lot of people, their first interview with me was like, why would I want to help these insurance companies? I hate them. And I'm like, well, do you really understand what's behind a claim?
Right.
And they're like, no. Okay, let me explain what happens. And they say, wait a minute, that's a person that gets mistreated. I said, that's right. And our solutions can prevent that from happening. And they're like, oh, so I'm helping people.
Do
I'm
you
like,
want to
yes.
jump into a little bit more detail there? Because I do
Yep,
think
sorry.
it's important for people. No, it's really important for people to understand this. When you and I are talking about insurance, and the claim is where the rubber hits the road, we know this almost by definition. But for the people that aren't as deeply embedded inside the insurance industry as we are, maybe you can actually talk about, because there is some distrust or a little bit of,
Sure, of course there is.
right? But where does artificial intelligence, like what are the biggest operational challenges that insurance companies face when they want to implement AI? And then particularly when it gets to the claim, how can it make it better? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think there's been challenges across the board. It's getting the data together. A lot of these companies are very large. They have what we would call data silos. So they have some of the data in one system, another subset of the data in another system, and so forth. And we've seen companies that, because they've grown through acquisition, they've got a lot of legacy systems. There's just a lot of different reasons that just getting the data together has
Right.
been a challenge. And AI is changing that, because AI can now, with again, these LLMs can, on an internal basis, a secure basis, can start to pull data from all these disparate systems, and has the language intelligence to say, okay, I can see that all this information is related to this entity, whether it's an insured piece of business or whatever, and start to gather that and say, I think this is what describes this risk. Humans can then step in and say, I think that agree, but start to understand that life cycle of risk that hasn't been as well understood when it's all chopped up into pieces. And so I think that's where AI starts to bring together the ability to just, by the way, what broker brought you this risk? Does that play a part in the actual risk profile?
Yeah.
In many cases, we've seen it does. And people don't look at it. They just see, well, here's a submission we got. Let's quote it, as opposed to, where'd it come from? Have we dealt with this broker before, this office of this broker before? What kind of risks have they brought us before? Is this typical or atypical of the risks? Is this an outlier that they don't know what to do with, so they're tossing it to us? Or is this just their bread and butter? They know these risks well. This is what they do all the time. And we do really well when we write risks from this broker that way. And all that kind of ancillary information doesn't get carried through the typical, here's a submission based on a standard data set that is really typical. Insurance, they want to, if this is work comp, these are the N fields that you must fill out.
Right.
If this is commercial auto, these are the Y fields you must fill out. That's been typical, very, very static, very rigid. This LLM explosion allows it to be a lot more fluid, a lot more humanistic. Like, okay, I can see things, textual things about this that I couldn't see before. It allows, I think, to bring more experience to bear than just the raw data.
Does artificial intelligence and the LLMs allow for the deeper understanding of unstructured data? And then because it can do a better job of understanding and sort of accumulating this unstructured data, make it easier for the claims process to actually get done, if that makes sense, so that it's not so hard for people to either both fill out the form that they normally have to do, or for somebody to understand like what the claim is meant to be. And then not parametric insurance per se, because that's kind of a different animal.
It is.
But does it allow that claims process to be automated in a way that can make the customer experience just happier?
So yes to all those. Let me give you a couple of quick examples. So I think what we keep seeing is more and more opportunities to provide more intelligence to the claims operation earlier in the life of the claim, so they do the right thing at the right time.
Go ahead.
Whereas before, if they do it manual, they have to wait for certain information to show up. So our first client we signed years ago, we started telling them things about a claim they just never knew at day 2 or day 3 or day 4.
Right.
And they were like, what do you want? What do we do about this now? And our answer was, I don't know. The model's, predicting this is going to be a high cost claim. We haven't figured out how to tell you what to do about it. With LLMs now, we actually have ability to what we call next best action. What should you do about this claim on day 2? Should you put a nurse on this claim? And if the models run some sort of what if analysis based on historical claims we've seen before, a nurse on this type of claim and claimant has seen a very strong ROI based on the dollars you're going to spend on the time that nurse will spend on the claim, then the model will make a recommendation. It won't just say high cost claim. We'll say, now on this claim for this shoulder injury, a nurse would help reduce the duration and cost of this claim by N%. What happens to the person that was injured is a nurse calls and says, I'm here to help with this claim. I'm here to help you with your journey through the treatment that you're going to receive from a doctor, physical therapy, if there's surgery involved. And suddenly the person goes from what's happening, am I in trouble? Am I going to get fired? Am I going to lose my job to
Right.
someone says to them, look, my only job here is to take care of you. You're covered. All the medical's covered. Your job's gonna be waiting for you when you get back. This is an accident. It's not your fault. Reduce that concern, the fear, the anxiety that does take place in a lot of cases
Yeah.
for these folks that don't know what is happening. And if they don't know that's going to happen for weeks, they can get angry, they get scared. They drive by a billboard that says injured at work. Call me. I'll get you a bunch of money.
Right.
Some people, wow, that's a great idea. Let me do that. So it happens all the time. That window of suggestibility is very small and very early. If you take the right actions, and by the way, the alignment of interest is pretty high here. The injured worker doesn't want to be injured. Nobody does.
No.
They want to be healthy. Everybody
Right.
wants them healthy. Their family, their employer,
It's
the
in
insurance
everybody's
company
best
wants them
interest for
healthy.
everybody to be as healthy as possible, for sure.
And the payer, what we've seen time and time again, they will pay more money on the claim earlier when they know they can bring that person to a better resolution faster because it's in their best interest to do so. And everybody gets aligned around solving that health problem, getting that person to the healthiest they can be, keeping them away from addiction to pain meds. All those things are all in everybody's best interest, the health of the individual and the financial health of the payer. We're not doing anything that does. The only people that don't like what we're doing are the people that like to sue other people for supplements.
Yeah.
We're not helping those guys. We're trying to help everybody that really has a goal of getting anybody injured back to 100% health and back to a productive lifestyle as fast as possible.
So one of the things you said a little bit in passing was your first client, and you mentioned this was a bunch of years ago, right? Started working
Yes.
with you. But in the last like 18 months, so much stuff has changed, I would say. Even in the last 6 months, Martin and I spent a lot of time before you joined the show talking about a Microsoft report about work trends and how agentic AI is actually changing the way like people work and workflows change as well. And I'm curious if there's some adoption or absorption into insurers on the agentic side and just what their view is on this when they think about how to change the workflows that they're doing, particularly when it comes to something like claims. And we can talk about underwriting as well.
Well, I think in either case, they're going to build a lot of stuff themselves. I think the excitement, the desire, the fact that they want to, their data is very sensitive to them. They don't want that floating out in the world so that people can figure out how they price risk and
For sure.
the types of things.
Well, they
So a
definitely
lot
don't
of
want to
that's
put it
gonna
on a public LLM. That's 100%
Yeah.
for sure. No way.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So they're trying to get to that, and I think they're going to get to a certain amount internally and on their own because these things are very, powerful and they get better by the minute. And our job then is to find the things that we can do to add the greatest amount of value to that. So, as an example, on a claim side, we now can access certain things on an individual with consent on their health history, and do that very early in the life of a claim, very concisely and completely. But then we can turn that through LLMs into different kinds of reports. So if this person's being managed by a nurse, as I gave an example,
Yeah.
we can put a report together about that person's health history that a nurse can use very, very simply, but very directly to help guide them through their claim treatment, experience. You can also take a different less medical view of that same report and put it in front of an adjuster who just wants to know that there's milestones and time objectives to get things done and completed because they're trying to quarterback that case. We can take that same report and take it into a different subset and give it to a physical therapist who's now going to be treating this, and so they know the background of previous injuries to that body part. And there's just all sorts of ways you can take this one piece of information, but make everybody more productive with the ultimate goal of getting the person treated better, sooner, with a faster, more complete recovery. And so that agentic piece allows you to take one thing and use it. Right now we think there's like 17 different ways we could take this information, provide different people with the information they need when they need it to get the best outcome, as an example.
Yeah, and what does the adoption scale kind of look like inside these insurance companies, particularly when it comes to agentic, which is so new? And I'm curious. I mean, maybe you can answer that first, just at scale, what their desire is to have this agentic AI be part of their new workflows, if that's okay to ask.
So I think they're doing it on the fly right now. I think I saw a lot of this in the robotic process automation about 5 years ago. I don't know exactly when that took place. If you saw it, if you had people on your podcast with that, everybody went crazy
RPA.
putting it everywhere they could.
Yep.
Yeah, just to reduce, busy work and other things. And it did a lot of good things. And I think a lot of people are jumping on that bandwagon with LLMs right now internally. what our experience has been in both, just what I've seen and what the CEOs of these insurance companies tell me, they're going to build a lot of MVP kinds of solutions themselves. And that's fine. It's fun. It's kind of, it allows people to get access to and use this stuff and experience it themselves. But to build real robust production level solutions, they're in some cases are going to reach outside for companies that do it, commercially like us. So I think it's going to be complementary. I think some things we have actually, what's probably the newest conversation we have with clients more recently than we've ever had before is, can we take your gradient inputs or outputs and combine what we built internally and bring that together as to a solution that's now more configured for us, one individual insurance company to
Yeah.
consume. And we're looking at that saying that's A, it's yes, we can, and B, this is the best way it's ever been possible to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and the more you bring that together, because we're sort of outside in, we've got data from other companies that they will never have. Your competitors won't share it with them. We're
Right.
never going to share it with them.
No.
We can train models on patterns and best use cases and best approaches to things because we see it across multiple companies and share that knowledge, that insight, that those patterns with their internal tools that give them that better insight, better solutions internally.
So I want to agree with you on this because I think it's really important to make this point. A lot of companies, and let's just stay inside the insurance world, are definitely going to build these POCs, as you said,
100%.
because they want to test it and make sure that it's actually relevant to what they're doing. And to be fair, I think the other thing they want to do is, what's the right word? Attack the workflows that they have and see if there's a way they can change those workflows to make them more efficient using the agentic AI or just any kind of artificial intelligence. I think that makes perfect sense. But because it's not what their core competence is, in my mind, I think they're almost 100% going to go externally. I would say 98%, let's say, going to go externally and say, now that we kind of understand what we want to do, now we need to find somebody to help do that for us because there's no way we can do that ourselves, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, except I think there's going to be typically you'll end up with a not invented here group of people that want to build it themselves because they want to build themselves and they want that fun or the excitement or the whatever it is they want to do to accomplish that.
Maybe.
And I think there's always that tension. And what I've seen more recently, because there's been a lot of money spent on some of these core system and updates and upgrades that have been going on as people move to the clouds, a lot of these companies have come to the realization that things they built on their own are more MVP-ish. In other words, if they wanted to do it themselves, then it takes longer than they expected. It costs more than they expected. At some point, they just say, "I'm tired of this. This isn't any fun anymore," and they just stop when it hits a minimally viable capability, and they stop. And I had one CEO of one company who's a relatively young startup, now public insurance company. They came to the realization that all the things they built internally were MVP.
Yeah.
And they just finally gave up on it. They ran out of having fun and ran out of money and time. And they just had to turn it on and use it. And now they look back and say, look at all the things we built. And there's not one of them that ever hit what we wanted it to be when we started it.
Right.
And so they're in a very different perspective of what should we build and what shouldn't we build. And my background, I've never been in insurance before this startup. I've been in a lot of other industries. Most other industries have already figured out we stick to our core competencies and we outsource for everything else. And I think insurance is a little bit late to that fundamental mental and business model shift of, look, do we really need to do this ourselves? Are we really good at building software? Are we really good at building these things?
Right.
Maybe we should do what we do well and then and leverage the things that other people do well to make the combination the best it can be.
Yeah, look, I'll give you my perspective on this as well. And I've just based on my experience, we've seen a lot of the insurance companies that we've had on our show, on our other insurance focus shows before, talk about how they built internal platforms and internal systems. And when you dig a little bit deeper, what really happened is they employed somebody externally who white labeled those systems inside of these big insurance companies because it made the most sense and it was the most efficient way to do it. You talked a little bit, I think maybe before we started talking about gradient per se, you mentioned this idea that like these massively large language models could get disintermediated by even smaller ones. Do you think that, or do you see these discussions happening around, let's just have an insurance related LLM that eliminates the necessity, to know about Shakespeare and to know about all these other things that are kind of laughing, but they're kind of irrelevant, right? And it would be way more efficient from a processing standpoint if it didn't have to handle all this other sort of extraneous data. Do you see that happening where these models are going to shrink down and that internally, when the underwriters or the claims people or any other sort of operations people inside of insurance companies use it, that it's just going to get way more efficient as well because the model is just so much smaller?
So think about almost any technology wave we've seen out there. At some point, it goes from what I call this, again, my terminology is horizontal, where everybody can use it for a number of things, where things start to shift to
Yep.
vertical.
Agreed.
And the verticalization allows for that vertical application, somebody to gain a competitive advantage. And I'll use the software programming, the battle that started, between, all LMs are out there. Somebody realized, apparently, like one guy at Anthropic sort of realized, I could use this for, because software programming is a language. If I train this LLM and what my Python language is, it can,
Right.
so forth and so on. And if you look at the way their revenue has jumped, and now the battle lines are being formed around the whole software programming area,
Yeah.
the guys that are going to focus the deepest there are going to win that segment. And this is
Exactly.
when the horizontals go vertical. So what you're pointing to is verticalization is absolutely going to take over the second phase of insurance verticalization, healthcare, manufacturing, you name it, it's going to be verticalized, because someone's going to do it so well and gain such a competitive measurable advantage for their users over the generalist that it just shifts. And it's on us, the folks that are in those games, to figure that out and do it and deliver it, where the generalist can never be.
Yeah.
Almost nobody can be a virtually vertical everywhere. It just almost, we got companies out there that are massive and they can't do it. So it just isn't, it's not financially, physically possible for somebody to boil the entire ocean. They have to figure out what part they should own and target that. And so I do think verticalization is going to be the next phase in this area.
Can we talk a little bit about where AI and even agentic AI fits in the underwriting space? We spent a little bit of time talking
Sure.
about claims, but maybe we talk a little bit about underwriting as well.
Yeah, I think in the stages are gathering the data, doing that faster, pulling it together in a more complete understanding of what's the exposure that someone's trying to get insured, whether that's the broker producer level, whether it's the underwriting, the initial engagement. There's a lot of steps that have been, built into these processes that are very fundamental. I got to gather this data. I got to know these previous losses. And it can be very stage gate and slow and manual and cumbersome. These LMs can do it in instance and still get you the same exact level of detail and accuracy, so you can move faster. They can also indicate directionally where you might want to go.
Right.
And then we're actually pre-calibrating models based on different risk appetites, so that at the very beginning of the life cycle of this submission in underwriting, the first thing that happens is someone requests a quote. They refer to that as submission.
Yep.
Can we profile a submission that this is not going to fit your risk appetite as a carrier? You don't want this risk. It's a class you don't write. It's a state you're not licensed in. Whatever it is, you can eliminate some of the busy work just right up front. You won't write this business. It's not about you don't like it. It's too risky. It's not risky enough. Whatever. It doesn't fit your risk appetite. You don't write these lines of business. And we have a lot of clients they'll turn down 3/4 of their submissions because of that reason, but they have to look at them manually and review it. So that's a lot of work for people to do that.
For no reason.
LMs can do that for no reason, no value add.
Yep.
And there's so many subsequent steps in the process where if you think about lean manufacturing as a concept, if you can look at all the steps they're taking and identify those steps that add value, repeat those, build those into a process. Those that don't add value, eliminate those. You don't need them anymore. Reduce them. That improves efficiency. And we find that's where you start to come into, now they're, binding more of the right business. They're a better carrier for their broker partners, because now they tend to underwrite more of what gets sent to them. It starts to make the flywheel work better for everybody in the food chain. But ultimately, they want to make sure they underwrite it properly and accurately so they can get the right risk. And AI in smaller risks works better, because I think the fundamental of insurance historically has been, when you think about the actuarial math that's been used for decades in insurance, it's fundamentally built on what's called credibility. In other words, if I want to price a particular risk, whether it's property or casualty or anything, or health, what I really want is a lot of data on that risk from the past. I want to know how many times they've had these certain losses, whether it's auto accidents, if it's a commercial auto, a trucking business, or if it's a manufacturing company, how many work comp claims do they have a year, times how many plants do they have? Are they building more plants, whatever? And you can build a very practical sort of statistical model that says, okay, if they have 1.5 accidents per plant and they've added 2 more plants, guess what? Our model now tells there'll be 3 more claims next year. I mean, it's typically that's how they have built it up. If you move down to mid to lower market, where smaller, younger companies haven't been in business 5 years, They haven't had any losses before. How do you take that credibility model and apply it there? It doesn't work. AI can learn from other companies that look like this company, say, companies like this, ownership like this, industries like this, places of work like this, demographics of hired people like this. These are the kind of loss ratios they've had, the claim frequency and the claim severity those companies have had, in a very highly accurate way, can infer from other companies how the losses are likely to be received from this particular risk or a set of risks very accurately. And models can handle limitless number of variables. Humans can handle about 5 to 7.
Right.
So if you're really going to start working on some of these things that are more, there's a lot of data, but a lot of subtlety. Healthcare, there's a lot of subtlety. Where the people are, access to healthcare, how much they spent, their conditions, their ages, gender, lots of variables that the models can see millions and millions of times and can have a pretty good accurate indication of what each individual might cost. So it can roll up to a full group and say, okay, here's what this group's going to cost that healthcare carrier to insure. Right. Now they have the information they need. They can make a good, accurate decision. And if the group is lower risk, they'll get a lower rate. And their premiums will be lower and their healthcare costs go down. Higher risk, a little bit higher rate. But there's certain ranges they stay within. But the bottom line is everybody gets the insurance with a relative price that indicates kind of what they should be paying.
So just a couple more things, and then I'll let you go. Do you think that if you allow artificial intelligence to attack, as you said, the submissions, right? Does it fundamentally allow the insurance companies to actually underwrite more risk as opposed to less risk because they can simply process it faster?
So before LLMs took place, people were doing this. We call it straight through processing. And there's areas where if the policy is under a certain dollar amount, typically for commercial, like less than $10,000, a carrier can't really afford to have it fully underwritten. You can't afford to have somebody open up the file, read it, do the analysis, spend hours on it because they don't make enough money if it's a few $1,000s. So they've been doing straight through processing for years. LLMs will just make that more accurate, provide more of the information around the risks that you can build, pull in, put into a workflow, and probably have better results of your underwriting by automating that. But again, that's not something that AI opened the door for more of these companies to move down market into small commercial. They couldn't do it before with just fully manual. So they've been trying to find ways to get that because that can be a very big revenue driver for them. So it's not, they're not getting rid of people, just saying I couldn't get at that market with my current cost structure, my current process.
Right. I mean, they can underwrite more risk that's going to be less risky and hence make more money. They want to let people off to do this. They'll just have more.
And by the way, one of my observations is the big insurance companies that didn't like small risks, they weren't sure about it. The way they manage their risk, they price it higher because of the uncertainty.
Sure.
So that the people that were buying that insurance paid more, not because they should have paid more. They paid more because the carrier was less certain. And certainty will drive more liquidity in the marketplace. That liquidity means more price, transparency, and prices tend to be more aligned with what they should be when that happens.
Got it. And one more thing, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
How important is it for this artificial intelligence to actually be explainable to people, like so that it's not so black box-ish, if that makes sense?
I think the trade-off is, to some degree, there are things that you should understand about it. These things will never be perfect. They never have been. They never will be.
For sure.
But they get better. I do think what people think about is, well, are you trying to explain the math or are you trying to explain the logic? Because, my wife doesn't use GPS because she knows her direction skills are really great.
Right.
But she does use it now for identifying where there's traffic jams, accidents, other problems that she can't know. She doesn't even understand how that works. She doesn't care. It gives her the information she needs when she needs it. And I think the way these explainability models should work is give you the information you need when you need it to make that decision where you can do it confidently. So it's, for the very beginning, we started this business over a dozen years ago. People want to know what the math was doing.
Right.
I don't think they really want to know what the math is doing because the math is really complex. And when you explain it, most people
don't understand.
Probably wouldn't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
But they would like to understand that it's the location of this business that adds some risk. They would like to understand it's the the turnover. This is a business that we've got certain companies that have 400% of the employees turnover every year. And so we would point to the fact that there's a high turnover rate. Well, maybe nobody realized that in that business, for that kind of business, the turnover rate is actually that high. Okay, that's novel. That's information that I can use, and that helps me understand why I should be thinking about this differently.
Got it. Okay, Stan, thank you so much for coming and doing this today. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to tell you one more thing, and then I let you go.
Please.
I grew up in a place called Nantasket Beach, which I wanted to save until the end, so you could
All
smile.
right.
So you could smile about something.
There we go.
I've been in the town where you live for sure, probably. Anyway, have a great day. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing
Thanks
this.
for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Okay, that was awesome. It was great to talk to Stan about that. That's it today for AGTP Daily. Thank you again for joining us. As always, give us a thumbs up on today's video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on all our socials, on X, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, everywhere we publish stuff. Let us know in the comments if there's anything you would like us to cover. And if you have any questions for us, always feel free when we're doing the show as well to participate at any level you want. Leave stuff in the chat. If we see it, we will answer those questions as well. My name is Michael Waits. Martin Runford also joined us as always for today. We will be back again at the same time tomorrow. Bye for now.